Coming up on today's show, I want to run through players on the Browns roster that are on the hot seat going into the NFL draft, aka who are the Brian Drews on this team and who could be the next Bo Callahan that maybe takes their job. And I am so excited / not excited at the same time to rewatch Draft Day in a few weeks. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Starting with number one on my hot seat list, it is linebacker Devin Bush. If you looked at all 22 starters on this team, there's no doubt in my mind that Devin Bush is 22nd in terms of confidence of holding on to that job going into week one. JOK, Jordan Hicks, they have the other two's jobs pretty much locked up without a doubt. But Devin Bush is the guy holding on by a bit of a thread. And if it wasn't for a severe lack of experience behind him on the depth chart currently, I think he may not even have this job necessarily going into training camp. Now, I'm being a little harsh on the former first-round pick, but when I look at the last two seasons between his 1 year in Seattle and his final year in Pittsburgh, for a playmaking linebacker coming out of Michigan, he sure hasn't made a whole lot of plays the last two seasons, right? No sacks, no takeaways, no statement plays that really changed the course of a game, and that's what Devin Bush did coming out. Am I wrong? He signed a 1 year, $1.5 million deal with the Browns, so by no means was this contract you're for sure locked to have a big spot on this team. If he does not have a good training camp, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility he does not even make the 53-man roster if some rookie that the Browns draft really wows them and another guy or two does the same thing. In my eyes, the reason why the Browns signed Devin Bush is they were actually betting on defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz to untap what is some great potential in the former 10th overall pick out of Michigan. I think the Browns looked at Devin Bush as a really good raw player that Andrew Berry has gone to that well before. You know what I mean? He brought in Tristan Hill, a former second-round pick. He has gone down this path with Malik McDowell, a second-round pick. So he likes finding highly drafted players that other teams have deemed no longer serviceable and seeing if his coaching staff can resurrect their play a little bit. Now, when the draft rolls around, I expect the Browns to be looking at linebacker in the second day, and I sure hope that some of these top players are available at pick 54. It's no secret, Edgerrin Cooper is my number one target for a player that could realistically fall to pick 54. Junior Colson and Payton Wilson round out the top three on Mel Kiper's linebacker rankings. But Edgerrin Cooper is my number one guy. I think he is a very well-rounded linebacker. He does not necessarily have a severe Achilles heel at any of the three major points of emphasis for linebacker: coverage, run stopping, and pass rush. He had 8 sacks last year for the Aggies, 2 forced fumbles, 17 tackles for loss. He is simply a do-it-all linebacker that has a knack for always being around the football. Now, if Cooper gets taken before the Browns, which is a very real possibility, Junior Colson out of Michigan, he's much more of a run stopper than Edgerrin Cooper is. He's not going to stand out necessarily with his pass rush upside, but if you're looking for a linebacker that may not be a Pro Bowl caliber player, but someone that can hang around the league for a while because he's always going to be near the football and taking down running backs and shedding blockers, this is your man. And then you got Payton Wilson, who I think has maybe sneaky the highest upside of the three of them. I mean, last year for NC State, I don't think that's a typo. 138 tackles, 17 and a half tackles for loss, 6 sacks. I know there are some questions and comments about his health, but Payton Wilson, I think, is another really good sneaky candidate that we should probably give some more airtime to, but I just feel like Edgerrin Cooper is by far the best of the bunch. Now, before we look at the next player on the hot seat, we are so close to reaching 34,000 subscribers. We're at 33,937, a little over 60 to go. So if you haven't joined the channel yet, I invite you to go ahead and do so. Second on my hot seat list going into the draft, let's go with running back Jerome Ford. I think this one kind of speaks for itself. I mean, for starters, the Browns have already added 2 running backs in free agency, D'Onta Foreman and Nyheim Hines. Now, I think Hines is going to be a much bigger piece of special teams than in the running back room. He really hasn't been a true running back for the last few years of his career. But D'Onta Foreman will definitely push Jerome Ford for that backup slash starting job until Nick Chubb returns. And Nick Chubb is the big monkey wrench in all this, right? If Nick Chubb is ready to roll after a few weeks into the season, this conversation is somewhat mute. But if Nick Chubb misses the first 8, 9, 10 weeks, this is a very important discussion to have. So the reason why I've got Jerome Ford on this list is the Browns, I think, should be good Boy Scouts. And like an Eagle Scout, yours truly, be prepared to not have Nick Chubb for an extended period of time and look to the draft to find a running back that can help bridge the gap from week 1 until whenever Nick Chubb returns. Now, looking at Mel Kiper's running back rankings, I don't think the Browns are going to be going after Jonathan Brooks. I think they believe Nick Chubb can still come back and play at a high level. So I think they want to go with a back that complements Nick Chubb. And to me, it's a no-brainer who that best candidate is. It's Jaylen Wright out of Tennessee. You're looking at a home run running back, a guy that can turn the corner, get the edge, and find separation between himself and the nearest defender. And the 7.4 yards per carry average, that really speaks it to it. Had 35-plus rushes last year at Tennessee of 10 or more yards. And keep in mind, he only had 137 carries. Now, another name to watch for is Trey Benson. Benson suffered a knee injury early in his collegiate career, but he bounced back quite nicely from that. And we saw Nick Chubb overcome a knee injury early in his collegiate career. So I don't think you should look at that and just completely cross him off your list. I could see Andrew Berry reaching on a running back if he feels like, I like where my defense is at. I'm not looking to draft any defenders that are going to be impact players for 2024. If there is one spot on this roster that could truly have the guy picked at 54 be your week 1 starter, if it's not Devin Bush losing his job, it could be a running back because Nick Chubb could miss the first month or so, and that rookie running back could really push Jerome Ford and Deontay Foreman for that starting gig. And so if Andrew Berry feels like, hey, that's going to be the most impactful position that could be made at pick 54, maybe he says, to hell with the draft rankings. I want to go get the best possible back. And if that means going around early on some of these players, so be it. Now, before we get on to the rest of the players on my hot seat list, should the Browns draft a running back in rounds 2 or 3? Do you feel like this would be a good selection for one of their 2 picks in day 2? Or do you want to see them maybe target something else in the first day of their draft and then go after a running back in the final day of the draft? Let me know what you think in the comments. Moving on to number 3. Now, there's a big drop-off after 1 and 2 to number 3, but I have Elijah Moore at 3. And I'll expand on that and explain because it's a bit of a head-scratcher, but let me tell you why in just a second. First, though, today's sponsor is Game Time. Spring is here, which means we have baseball, playoff basketball soon, playoff hockey right afterwards, and you should not have to miss any of the action because of ticket prices. With Game Time, you can get killer last-minute deals and all-in prices for all the big events. There is nothing worse than hidden fees just ruining your experience when you go to the checkout portion while shopping for tickets. But with Game Time, you can actually look at the all-in price before you go down that well. So check out Game Time today. Use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. It's the best place to find last-minute seats. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use that code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code CHAT SPORTS for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now, to go back to the Elijah Moore, this would be a semi-surprise. I definitely would not be forecasting the Browns going out and getting a wide receiver that could really contend with Elijah Moore's spot on this roster as the team's number 3 wide receiver after Cooper and Judy. But I do think there is a chance, and it's not just a 1% chance. I mean, last year, Elijah Moore, 640 yards, 2 touchdowns. There were some good moments, but I think for what the Browns gave up for him, doing that second and third round pick swap, I think the expectations in the bar was a little bit higher than 640 yards and 2 touchdowns. So the reason why I say there's a big drop-off from number 2 to number 3 on this list is the only way I really see this happening where the Browns get a rookie wide receiver who actually contends for Elijah Moore's spot as a starting receiver on this team is if one of these top 10 players is available at pick 54. And I personally don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to see the top 10 receivers go before the Browns are on the clock at pick 54. Why do I say that? One, it's a loaded wide receiver class. Two, teams are looking to get young at that position. Three, history says so. I mean, look at the last 5 NFL drafts. These are the number of wide receivers that have been taken before the 54th overall pick. Are we noticing a pattern? Down, up, down, up, down. What's next? Up. And it's no coincidence that it's a loaded wide receiver class as well. So teams are going to be looking at a lot of those top wideouts. So unless one of those guys just makes a unbelievable fall to pick 54 and Andrew Berry has to deviate from his original plans because he didn't think A.D. Mitchell or Xavier Worthy, one of those guys, would ever be available at pick 54, I think we're going to see the Browns go a different direction at that spot. But if that does happen, then they go get one of those top-tier receivers, and all of a sudden, that new rookie is really pushing Elijah Moore for his starting job on this team. Moving on to number 4 on the hot seat list, I've got offensive tackle Jed Wills. It's important to keep in mind the rankings are important. As we get from 1 to 5, the chances of this happening are really diminishing. But this would be a best player available kind of pick at pick 54 and have it be an offensive tackle. Where if the Browns, who have 3 starting caliber tackles, feel like we just simply can't pass on this tackle, whoever that guy may be. And we've seen the Browns do that in previous drafts with Martin Emerson, with Cedric Tillman, making picks at positions that weren't big needs for them, but they simply liked the prospect too much to pass on. Now, Jed Wills is entering the final year of his rookie contract. It's that fully guaranteed 5th-year option. They did rework his deal, which they also did with Jerry Jeudy. Jeudy got an extension. Makes you wonder if the Browns feel like Wills is a long-term piece for them, but maybe they decide to let him play out his 5th-year option and really make a decision next offseason as to whether or not they want to extend him. And if they are kind of torn on whether or not they think that extension could come, maybe they go out and draft his replacement this year so that when 2025 rolls around, they've got a left tackle who can step in and start for them and not be a true rookie. Now, Jed Wills has been somewhat of a polarizing, contentious player on this team ever since he got drafted 10th overall. I mean, you can look at his PFF rankings throughout his career. He's never finished better than 52nd out of 83. He's never really been a top half tackle, but he's not bad. He's a starting tackle in this league. May not be a left tackle. I wonder if he moves on from the Browns and another team signs him, if they move him back to where he played at Alabama, right tackle. But I do think Jed Wills is a starting caliber player in this league, and I think he's an average one. But if the Browns are striving for a little bit more and they don't want to give Wills a lot of money in free agency next year, maybe they decide this is the draft to go and get an offensive tackle, and kind of like what they wanted to do with DeJuan Jones, which was sit him for a year. Maybe they decide, let's sit this tackle for a year, and then we roll into 2025, moving on from Jed Wills, maybe cutting Jack Conklin to save some money, and we've got a second-year left tackle ready to step in, and DeJuan Jones entering year 3 ready to step in, and 2 much cheaper options at tackle than a free agency contract for Wills and Jack Conklin's current deal. Possibility. That's all I'm saying. Now, do you think the Browns should find a way to extend, bring back Jed Wills? What do you think? E for extend, P for pass. I don't want to see anything get done before the season unless it's an absolute fleece of a contract. I think you should let the year play out, see how he looks, and if you can find a way to re-sign him for a somewhat team-friendly deal next offseason, sure, if he plays well next year. But I'm not rushing to the altar to get Jed Wills extended and locked up long-term. 5th player on my hot seat, I'm going to go with offensive guard Wyatt Teller. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I kind of struggled to pick this one, but I do think if you had to make a case for a number 5, Teller would be one of the more likely options. Again, these last few are kind of longer shots than the first ones, but Teller is under contract through 2025, so two more years left on that extension. He signed was it 3 years ago now almost? He's got a near $22 million cap hit next year. With him turning 30 in August, I still think he's playing at a high level. The Pro Bowls have shown that the last few years. This is not move on from Wyatt Teller because he's about to be washed. This is you'll be older and you'll be a $22 million player at a spot that doesn't command that type of cap hit. Maybe the Browns decide we should go draft a replacement for him this year because he could be a cap casualty next season. The Browns and other NFL teams, they're always thinking a few steps down the road. So if they know that this might be the last year of Fautanu and Teller on this team, maybe they draft a guard at pick 54, which, keep in mind, Joel Fautanu himself, all-pro, future, maybe Hall of Fame. I don't know if Hall of Famer, but Browns Hall of Fame for sure. Kind of player. He was drafted in round 2. So, you can get good guards in round 2. And when you look at Mel Kiper's offensive guard rankings, one guy that I don't think it'd be a round 2 pick, but Zak Zinter, team up north, he would have been if he didn't break his leg in the big game. And maybe he falls to day 3 as a result. And maybe the Browns are like, you know what? Let's take Zinter and then let him kind of rehab / just rest up for a season since we don't really need him for 2024. And that way he's 100% healthy to play in 2025. All right, that will do it for us on today's show. We will pick a card, as always, to wrap up. I got producer Jack Lauderay hanging out with me at the moment. Which card do you want to go with, Jack?
Let's do 7 of spades.
7 of spades? I will go with the 9 of clubs. No good reason, just feeling it. I was close. 10 of clubs. Wow. 10 of clubs. Damn. All right. That will do it for us on today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you all later.